I've always felt a deep connection to the simplicity of small-town life. The changing of the seasons, the earthy scent of freshly plowed fields, and the steady drone of tractors were constants in my world. But as I grew older, a restless curiosity stirred within me. Tales of bustling cities and far-off places sparked a yearning for something beyond the familiar horizon of our quiet town. Life was straightforward and grounded in hard work. We weren't poor, but luxury was a concept that didn't fit into our daily routine. My parents were content with our life, but I found myself dreaming of adventures far beyond the borders of our little community. I knew that if I wanted to break free from the farm, I'd have to make a bold move. Growing up, I learned that if I wanted more than the occasional trip to the general store, I'd have to take matters into my own hands. We weren't exactly struggling, but comfort was a distant relative. By the age of 7, I was already helping out by hauling and stacking hay bales. After finishing high school, despite my parents' wishes, my best friend Jake and I enlisted in the Navy. We spent 4 years stationed in South Korea and Japan, and though we were advised to stick to American-friendly areas, Jake and I ventured out as much as we could, knowing this might be our only chance to see the world. I blew half my money on having fun and sent the rest back home. Our service was mostly uneventful. Guard duty and the occasional prank were the highlights. By the time we were discharged, everyone called me Sailor instead of Carter Dawson, a nickname that stuck when I got back home, though folks never quite understood where it came from. Back in Middleton, job options were scarce, mostly farming and construction. I chose construction, working hard during the day and still having the energy to hang out with friends in the evenings. I met Emma at O'Malley's Diner, and it was love at first sight. After several attempts, she finally agreed to go out with me, and we were married 9 months later. At 24, Emma and I were happy, but knew we needed to save money before starting a family. My dad advised me to look for better job opportunities, and he was right. We could barely cover our expenses, and after 2 years of marriage, we had little in savings, living paycheck to paycheck. The nearby cities of Ridgefield and Clarkstown offered more job opportunities, and we hoped to improve our situation one day. One afternoon, Emma came home excited about a new fitness center opening in Clarkstown. The pay was better, and she was eager to apply, hoping the job would help us save up for a family. After a successful interview, Emma started working at Titan Fitness Center. At first, she dressed conservatively, but over time, her outfits became more revealing, which made me uneasy. However, when I visited the gym, I noticed her co-workers dressed similarly, which put my mind at ease. Her job seemed to boost her confidence, and her libido spiked, leading to some pretty wild nights together. She credited her workouts and healthier lifestyle for the change, and I couldn't complain about the new energy in our relationship. One Friday, Emma mentioned she'd been offered a promotion at the gym and asked me to attend a special event for spouses. Although I was skeptical, I agreed. On the night of the event, I had a bad feeling, so I brought Jake along. He handed me a small recording device, just in case. When we arrived at the gym, Jake wasn't allowed in at first, but I insisted, and we both got in after handing over our phones. Inside, Emma looked nervous, standing next to her supervisor, Ray Crusher Jenkins. She was dressed in a skimpy bikini, which shocked me. When I asked what was going on, Crusher smugly explained that he had set up an arm wrestling contest where the winner would get both a cash prize and a night with Emma. Though she initially resisted, the money tempted her, and she eventually agreed. Crusher revealed his plan to drug me with ketamine after I lost, so I wouldn't remember any of it. Emma would get the money, and we'd continue our lives as if nothing had happened. I realized Crusher had made several mistakes, including underestimating the loyalty of his accomplices and assuming I wouldn't notice being drugged. I knew I had to stay calm and think through my next move. One of the thugs claimed to know the right dose to knock me out, but I was done playing along. Forget it. I'm not competing. If Emma's considering this, she's yours. Do whatever you want with her. I'm leaving, I said coldly. Crusher responded, "You can't leave, Sailor. A deal's a deal. I promised Emma you'd compete and forget everything." "I don't care anymore. I just want a divorce," I replied. Emma started sobbing at my words. Ignoring her, I added, "If you want me to compete, you'll have to kill me afterward." Crusher dismissed my threat, saying let's get started. They marched me into the gym, where the men cheered and whistled at Emma's nearly undressed body. I looked around for Jake, but he was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Jake?" I asked. "He left on his own." One of the guys lied. I knew Jake wouldn't abandon me willingly, so I figured he was nearby. I needed help fast. Crusher, hiding his muscles under a light jacket, addressed the crowd, keeping their excitement high. "All right, everyone, this is what we've been waiting for." All 40 of us paid our entry fees and signed the waivers. Titan Fitness Center isn't responsible for any injuries. It's a double elimination tournament. Lose twice and you're out, he continued. Emma insisted her husband, Sailor, gets a shot too. He'll face the top contender. If he loses, the winner takes everything. Agreed. The men nodded. Great, Crusher said. The winner gets $20,000, a trophy, and a night with Emma. You've all seen her video. The winner's in for the night of his life. The crowd cheered as Emma flirted with them. Crusher added, "We have official referees from the World Arm Wrestling Federation. Their decisions are final." The matches began with 2 contests at a time, the gym echoing with cheers and groans as the men battled fiercely. I sat there, disgusted, as I watched my wife let other men put their hands on her. The anger inside me boiled over as I endured this humiliation. After an hour and a half, the competition whittled down to 10 finalists. One of the thugs sneered at me. "You just had a mouth off, didn't you? After this, I'm going to beat you senseless and claim you tripped down the stairs." In the semifinals, Crusher easily won, setting up the final match between him and me. He was so confident I'd be no challenge that he didn't even bother to stretch. I took off my windbreaker, tied it around my waist, and stepped up to the table. The room fell silent. No one believed I had a chance. They all assumed Emma would end up as Crusher's prize. "I want to see the $40,000 prize money," I demanded, my voice cold. Crusher taunted. "Why do you care? You're not going to win." "I still want to see it," I insisted. The goons fetched a locked box, and the referees confirmed the money was inside. I asked the referee, Justin Albright, to hold on to it and ensure I could leave in one piece. Crusher smirked. "You'll leave, don't worry," but his expression told me otherwise. I suspected his goons were lying in wait outside. Satisfied, I said, "I'm only here for the money. I don't care about her anymore. In fact, I'm tempted to leave her here, win or lose." Emma shot me a furious look, but I ignored her. Crusher interrupted. "Enough talk, let's get this over with." Emma kissed him passionately, and my anger flared up again. When she tried to kiss me, I pushed her away. "Don't touch me, Emma. You're nothing but a cheating snake. If I could, I'd divorce you right now. Get back behind me. I can't stand the sight of you." Emma started crying as the crowd gasped. The referees looked uneasy, and I hoped they understood I wasn't here willingly. Crusher taunted, "Put your arm up, and let's see who the real man is." The room erupted in cheers for Crusher as I reluctantly placed my arm on the table, locking hands with him. Referee Kevin Saunders went over the rules, and the match began. I pushed with all my might, but our hands didn't budge. Crusher grinned and slowly forced my hand down, winning the first round. The crowd cheered wildly. Taking a deep breath, I reminded everyone, best 2 out of 3, and got ready for the next round. Crusher laughed, sure of his victory. "You don't stand a chance," he taunted, the room egging him on, fueling my anger even more. Kevin repeated the instructions, and we started again. Crusher smirked, confident he'd win. I used every ounce of strength and leverage I had, and after about 10 seconds, his grip faltered. My arm locked in place, and I pushed back with everything I had. The crowd went silent as I slowly forced his hand down. When the referee called the match in my favor, the room fell into stunned silence. Crusher jumped back in disbelief. "No way, that was a fluke. I'm going to destroy you now," he yelled, tearing off his jacket and ripping his shirt to show off his muscles. He slammed his elbow on the table, ready for the final match. I ignored his theatrics, focusing on my breathing to stay calm. Kevin signaled the start, and Crusher threw all his strength into the first push, nearly pinning me. My hand shook, but I held on, waiting for him to tire. Then Emma's voice rang out. "Come on, Crusher, finish him so I can have you." Her words enraged me, giving me a new surge of energy. I pushed back, slowly turning the match in my favor. With one final effort, I slammed Crusher's hand onto the padded mat, and the referee declared my victory. I had beaten him 2 out of 3. The room was stunned. Crusher, in disbelief, asked, "How did you do that?" "I'll explain if you meet 2 conditions," I replied. "First, give me the $40,000. Second, let me leave here unharmed." Crusher agreed, and Justin handed me the money, which I quickly zipped into my windbreaker. I addressed the crowd. "I've won fair and square. Whether you like it or not, no one touches me." Crusher confirmed this, though I still suspected his goons were waiting for me outside. I explained, "I've worked on farms and in construction my whole life, building strength and endurance. In the Navy, I arm wrestled regularly and never lost. My muscles aren't built for short bursts like Crusher's. They're built for endurance. That's how I won. Now, I'm leaving." I retrieved my phone and started toward the door, the crowd still in shock. Emma called out, offering to drive us home and talk, but I replied, "I'll wait outside. Go put some clothes on." She saw it as a chance to talk, but I intended it as a way to buy time to escape. As I reached the front door, I spotted Jake's car. He flashed his lights, signaling he was ready. Just then, 3 of Crusher's goons appeared from behind an SUV and started running toward me. But Marines are trained to run, and I outran them, diving into Jake's car. Jake didn't hesitate. He peeled out of there, tires screeching as we sped away. I managed to escape with my memories intact. "I didn't abandon you in there, sailor," Jake quickly assured me. "Some big guys forced me out and tossed my phone on the ground. They said it was a closed event, and I wasn't invited, so I waited. I was about to call the police, but since no one else came out, I figured you were okay. But seeing those guys chasing you didn't look friendly. What happened? Where do you want to go?" he asked. "Take me to my place," I replied. As we drove, I filled Jake in on everything that had gone down. He was stunned, struggling to process Emma's betrayal and the twisted plan to drug me. His disbelief was palpable. "So, what's your plan?" Jake asked as we pulled up to my apartment. "Park behind the building," I instructed. "Emma's likely to show up soon. If she's alone, I'll talk to her while I pack. Can I crash at your place for a few days?" "Sure thing," Jake agreed. "It's just a couch, but it's all yours." "That'll do. If she brings any of those goons with her, I'll slip out the back and head straight to your place. Actually, I've got an idea." I took the cash and stashed it in an old fast food bag, which we hid under Jake's spare tire in the trunk. "Just in case. Got your piece on you?" "Always," Jake said, flashing his pistol before tucking it back into his waistband. He followed me inside, ready for anything. I was nearly finished packing when we heard the front door creak open. Jake quickly hid in the closet as Emma rushed in. "Oh, thank God you're here. I was so worried you'd be gone." "We need to talk," she said, her voice laced with fake concern. "Are you alone, or did you bring along your new friends?" I asked, not bothering to hide the bitterness in my voice. "It's just me," she insisted, looking down. "I'm sorry for what happened tonight. Things got out of control. I was supposed to play along, get the guys excited, but I took it too far." I let out a sarcastic laugh. "Too far? What did you think was going to happen? They already paid. You didn't need to do anything else." Emma fumbled to justify herself, claiming she was trying to play both sides, ensuring we'd walk away with the money no matter what. She praised my win and said she was relieved to be with me instead of anyone else. "That's not what I remember, Emma. I heard you cheering for Crusher, telling him to finish me off so you could be with him." I snapped. She dropped her gaze, mumbling something about how she still wanted to build a life with me, claiming it was just a one-time thing for the money. "You were okay with having me drugged and held captive. You betrayed me, Emma. That's something I can't forgive. We're done." Tears welled up in her eyes. "No, you don't mean that. We're meant to be together." A sudden knock at the door interrupted her plea. "Why don't you see who it is?" Emma suggested, trying to sound sweet. "Doesn't matter who it is," I replied, my suspicion growing. Emma grabbed my phone and left the room. As soon as she opened the door, Crusher and his thugs barged in. "I've got his phone, so he's not recording anything," Emma said, unaware that I had already activated a hidden recording device. She continued, "Just hold him down, drug him, and make it look like a robbery." "What the hell is this? Get out of my house!" I shouted, backing up. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you remember tonight. It'll be easier if you just take the drugs and sleep. If not, they'll force it down your throat and rough you up," Emma admitted, her voice shaking. "You didn't plan on this," I said as I pulled out my Glock, aiming it steadily. "Now sit down. I don't want to kill anyone, but I'll take down 3 of you before the rest can react." They froze, clearly not expecting me to be armed. Crusher sneered, "You wouldn't dare shoot. We'd still get you. Want to find out?" I replied coldly. "I'm trained for this. If anyone moves, I'll drop 3 of you. Sit down now." One of the goons hesitated, but finally said, "Why should we? We still have the upper hand." "You've got nothing," I replied. "Sit or I call the cops." "Your choice." They grudgingly sat down, easing back on the couch and chairs, making it harder for them to get up. I positioned myself against the far wall, sitting in a kitchen chair with my pistol resting on my thigh, finger ready on the trigger. "Look, babe," Emma tried again. "Just give them the $20,000 and take the drug. Tomorrow, we'll be $20,000 richer, and it'll be like nothing happened." "And how would you explain the money to me?" I asked, not buying it. "Simple," she said. "You won $40,000 and gave me half to hold. Then you got mugged on the way home. They might rough you up a little to make it look real, but we'd still be together, with a bright future ahead." I started laughing, a dark, hollow sound that made the men tense. Emma looked confused, starting to stand. "Grab his gun," Crusher ordered. "He won't hurt you. He still cares about you." "You're half right," I said, my voice hard. "I did care about you. But if you get up, I'll put 3 of these guys in the ground." She froze, then sat back down, shock washing over her. "You fell for Crusher's lie that I'd wake up with no memory, that I'd just go along with whatever story you fed me. But you were never going to see a cent of that money. They planned to drug me and have their way with you, film everything, and blackmail you into doing whatever they wanted. This wasn't a one-time deal." Emma tried to protest, claiming the guys were satisfied with what they got earlier, but I cut her off, pointing out the video she made. "That video? It's going to be their leverage. Your life, as you knew it, is over." I stared her down, my voice cold. "Whose idea was it to invite me tonight?" Emma finally admitted. "It was Crusher's idea. He wanted to humiliate you, not just by screwing me, but by making you watch. He wanted to control you, keep you from going to the cops. And once they had their blackmail, they'd own me. You were never going to see that money, Emma. They'd make sure of it. You'd be their puppet, used whenever they wanted, with no way out." Emma's face fell as the truth sank in. She confessed, "I agreed to sleep with Crusher, but I never wanted this." I couldn't help but smirk at how clueless Emma had been. "You really think they'd go to all this effort and not have their fun? They'd get everything they wanted, and you'd be left with nothing but a blackmail tape. And even if you got your hands on the money, they'd make sure you paid for it. They'd stage my injuries at the gym to look like an accident, but here at home, they'd make it look like a brutal assault. They'd beat me half to death, maybe even break a few bones. And you wouldn't have a dime to cover the hospital bills because, let's face it, you were never going to see any of that cash. And even if you did, Crusher would just use it to tighten his grip on you. And let's be honest, Emma, you'd never stop taking your birth control. You'd be too scared of ending up pregnant with one of their kids instead of mine." She sat there, the reality of her situation finally sinking in. I had her figured out, and it was clear I was done with her lies. Emma's face went pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Here's another thing you didn't think through," I continued. "You wanted to claim I got mugged after giving you $20,000, but there are 42 people who saw me leave with every penny of that cash. No mugger would leave a single cent behind. Your story would fall apart instantly. They'd take every last dollar." "How'd a dumb grunt like you outsmart us?" Crusher sneered. Emma's horror deepened as she realized just how thoroughly she'd been played. "Just because I don't have a college degree doesn't mean I'm an idiot," I shot back. "In the Navy, they taught us to think through every scenario, to anticipate every move. Earlier tonight, I knew those guys were more interested in control than cash. You acting like you could control them was a joke. You can't control what they do once they're on their own." I'm sure you're all tight, but this wasn't just about money. The split would have been small, so why take such a big risk? No, the reward had to be something else. I'm betting you bragged about Emma, and they jumped at the chance to help you with this twisted plan. Suddenly, Crusher grabbed Emma and yanked her in front of him. Drop the gun, or I'll snap her neck, he growled. I'm not going to shoot you, Crusher, but I will take out 3 of your men if you hurt her. Killing her only gives me more reason to act, I said, raising my Glock. Now, let her go. One of the other thugs spoke up. Ray, let her go. This guy isn't bluffing, he'll shoot us. Crusher hesitated, but finally released Emma. The goon pressed on. Look, you're not going to shoot anyone. You don't want to spend the rest of your life in prison, and you're not going to call the cops either. And why wouldn't I? I asked, my voice cold. Because we've got 42 people who saw your wife acting like a sleaze tonight. They'll think you were in on it, pimping her out for a quick buck. You can deny it all you want, but it'll look like you just got mad when you didn't get your cut. We might have threatened to rough you up, but killing you? No way. That's how it'll play out, and you won't be able to prove otherwise. Crusher let go of Emma, who now looked at him with a mix of fear and betrayal. The goon continued, we get caught with the ketamine and a camera, sure, but we're vets. We know how to spin a story. Emma won't report us. She's got no evidence. Meanwhile, everyone saw how she behaved tonight. She made that video, and I'm sure you don't want that kind of thing getting out in a place like this. Crusher snarled. I need that money. I just bought a new car. The more calculating goon cut in, forget it, man. You lost the contest. Splitting the money 5 ways isn't worth the hassle. Emma was the real prize, and we planned on keeping her for ourselves. We weren't going to turn her loose right away. We had more games planned, with her as the trophy. Maybe, eventually, we'd let her have a kid, but only after she was completely under our control. We'd even throw her some cash to keep her compliant. But now, it's over. We're leaving. Another thug, standing nearby, chimed in, we'll go, and you two can figure things out. But honestly, counseling isn't going to fix this. You'll never forget what happened, and you sure as hell won't forgive. Still, I got an idea. I can give you some ketamine, enough to wipe your memory. Mix it with a few drinks, and you'll forget all about tonight. We plan on giving you a bunch of shots anyway. If you still care about Emma, you could take it after we're gone. She won't be at the gym anymore, so she's safe from us. Hopefully, she's learned her lesson about being stupid and the risks of messing around. I couldn't believe how desperate they were to salvage their plan. You really think I'd go for that? I asked, incredulous. The thug persisted. It'd be like giving her a second chance. She could explain the money honestly. You won it in an arm wrestling contest. Most of the guys don't live around here, so you're unlikely to run into them again. And if you do, they might mention your wife, but probably not what she did. I pretended to consider his suggestion, but I couldn't ignore the biggest flaw. How's she supposed to explain my memory loss? That's the tricky part, he admitted. She'd have to make it look like you got drunk and hit your head in a fall. If you decide to get checked out at the hospital, she'd need to come up with a solid story. But you'd still be married, and love can make people believe a lot of things. The men chuckled, clearly trying to sway me. I figured they were already scheming about how to come back for the money. He went on, you'd have to take the ketamine tonight to make sure it wipes out enough memory. You might remember going to the gym, but not what happened there. That would give Emma the chance to fill in the blanks. But the real question was what to do about Emma. I could just divorce her and move on. That's starting to sound like the best option, I said, letting my words hang in the air. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. It wasn't out of amusement, but more out of sheer disbelief at how twisted this whole situation had become. Emma, however, mistook it as a sign of forgiveness and started begging, promising she'd never do anything like this again. But you still cheated, I replied, my voice cold and steady. And even if I took the ketamine after you guys left, that wouldn't solve anything. What's to stop you from coming back and blackmailing her for the money? You could easily tear us apart again. The men all shook their heads, trying to appear sincere, and even Emma joined in. But I wasn't buying it. I want each of you to swear, right now, that you'll never bother us again, I demanded. One by one, they muttered their empty promises, but I knew better than to trust them. The bigger issue is that Emma would have to hurt me enough to make the amnesia story believable. I continued. She'd have to make it look real. Do you really think you could do that, Emma? Oh, Absolutely. I'd make it convincing, she said, almost too eagerly. I could give you a few kicks to the head and ribs, maybe stage a fake mugging. We could say we went out to celebrate, and you got attacked. I could claim I ran for help, and when I came back, they were gone. Then I'd bring you home and kick you a few more times, just to make it look real. I'd use your heavy boots, leave some good bruises, and maybe even a kick to the groin, just enough to hurt but not do any lasting damage. The way she quickly embraced the idea of hurting me was both shocking and revealing. The 6 men exchanged uneasy glances as she continued, almost gushing. Tomorrow, I'd take care of you, bring you ice packs for your head, and you know the rest. We'd save our marriage, have enough money to start a family, and I promise I wouldn't cheat again. Not even a kiss or letting someone touch me, I swear. Her promises felt hollow, and I couldn't ignore the fact that she only mentioned this because I called it cheating. Deep down, she didn't fully believe it was wrong. I looked her in the eyes and asked calmly, "Be honest, Emma. You really wanted to sleep with Crusher, didn't you? You'd be thinking about that while you kicked me." Emma hesitated, then finally admitted, "Okay, I won't lie. Yes, I was excited about the idea of being with him. I felt his desire, and I wanted it too. It would have been wild, but now I'm angry. Angry at you for figuring it all out, and angry at him for setting it up. Maybe I should kick you both in the balls as payback. How about that? Let me kick Crusher too, and then we're even." Crusher's expression darkened. "Forget that. I'm telling you the truth. You won't remember any of this, so what does it matter? And you won't remember what happened earlier either." But the flush on Emma's face told me otherwise. She'd remember every detail and probably replay it in her mind, even if she never got to actually sleep with Crusher. She seemed disturbingly eager to hurt me, just as she had been ready to break my heart earlier, as long as I wouldn't remember any of it. "Since we're being honest," I said, "I have a few more questions before I decide whether to let you go or let Emma wipe my memory." Both Emma and Crusher nodded, clearly eager to move things along. "You both claimed you never actually slept together and were counting on erasing my memory. Emma, you even asked that I get a shot at winning, though you didn't think I would. But let me ask you this. Did you plan on making me watch before you drugged me? Because you've hinted at it both ways." I already knew the answer, but I wanted to hear it from them. "Yeah, we thought it'd be a thrill to make you watch," Crusher admitted. "Emma liked the idea of having that kind of control over you." The word control hit hard, especially given how much Emma seemed to enjoy the idea of hurting me once I was unconscious, or even while I was still awake, just to hear me scream. "It wasn't just my idea," Emma protested, seemingly unaware of what she was revealing. "Crusher said it would be hot if you cried while watching him be the better man." I pushed further. "Whose idea was it first?" Crusher jumped in. "It was mine, but Emma definitely added some ideas to make it even more intense." I followed up with another question. "You said she rewarded all of you earlier today as a way to pay for your help. Is that true?" One of the men nodded. "Yeah, she agreed to it to show she was serious and to pay us since we couldn't win her in the contest." I kept my emotions in check, but inside I was boiling. All 5 men admitted she had done it, each describing how she'd crossed the line. Emma then urged, "Please, just let them go and let me take care of your memory. We can reset everything and move on. I won't be tempted again, I swear." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. "Yeah, sure. After you get your kicks in, right?" I said sarcastically. "Oh no, I won't enjoy it. I'll just do what's necessary to make it look real." She quickly backtracked, contradicting herself. I turned to the men and asked if they planned to come back for the money and Emma after I was out cold. They all denied it, but their assurances were as convincing as a cheap knockoff. I wasn't about to let my guard down. I pulled out a second phone and raised my Glock again, reminding them I wasn't playing around. "You guys aren't going anywhere far. You'll give us just enough time for me to take the ketamine and stage the mugging. Then you'll come back for the money. And for Emma." Emma's face paled. "You'd be stupid enough to tell them I'd taken the pill, and they'd come back to finish the job," I said, watching her panic. She turned to the men, asking what their plan was, but I cut in. "They already have enough blackmail material on you. Do you really think they didn't record everything? They'd come back, take the money, and force you back into their twisted scheme." I could have pretended to take the ketamine, waited for them to return, and caught them in the act, but that would have been too risky. Crusher, visibly frustrated, started ranting about how a dumb Marine had outsmarted them. I asked where the video was, and one of the men admitted it was in his bag by the door. Emma fetched the camera and tossed me the SD card, but I wasn't fooled. I knew the footage was also saved on the camera's hard drive. "I don't care about the video," I said, tossing the SD card to the floor. "Emma, you decide what to do with it. If you want to let them blackmail you, that's your problem." My focus was on something much bigger, the recording I had been making since this whole ordeal began. Just then, the emergency operator's voice came through the phone. "What is the nature of your emergency?" I calmly gave my name and address, then reported, "I've got 6 men my wife invited to our home to attack and rob me. I'm holding them at gunpoint and need officers dispatched immediately. No ambulance is needed yet, but that could change if one of them tries anything." The men stared at me with a mix of shock and anger. "What the hell, man? We were ready to leave. You even talked about working things out with your wife. We gave you the camera. You could have erased all the evidence. We'd have nothing to blackmail you with." One of them protested, his voice trembling. Emma looked completely blindsided. "You ruined my marriage," I said, my voice icy. "So, I'm returning the favor. Now you can explain to your wives why you got arrested. Let's see if they're as gullible as mine was." 3 of the men shifted in their seats, and I raised the Glock, making sure they saw my finger resting on the trigger. "I wouldn't try anything if I were you. This trigger is sensitive, and it takes less than 2 pounds of pressure to fire. And Emma, I told you I'd never trust you again. You seemed way too eager to fake a mugging by stomping on me." I called out, "Jake, get in here." Jake stepped out from around the corner, his face grim. "This is his phone," I said, holding up the phone I'd used to keep the emergency call active. "Everything's been recorded, and there's a pin recorder as a backup." One of the men scoffed. "That's hearsay," he muttered. I shrugged. "It'll still be part of the statement. And whether it holds up in court or not, your wives might not like what they hear." I kept the gun moving between them, sensing they were close to making a move. "Jake, go outside and inform the police. I'll put the weapon down when they enter. Once the officers arrive, they'll take us all in. You weren't involved, so secure everything for me. Okay?" I said, handing him the SD card from the camera. "Got it," Jake replied, his tone steady. "I'll come down to the station after locking up." We could hear sirens as the police cars approached. The emergency operator confirmed, "Officers are on location." I instructed, "My friend is at the door and it's unlocked. I'm in the living room with the pistol held by the barrel." The first officer through the door was Jake's older brother, Bob, a police lieutenant. "What's going on here, Army? Put the weapon down and step away." I complied, noticing his body cam was running. "It's simple," I began. "My wife cheated on me with these guys earlier today. They planned to drug me with ketamine and booze, and when that didn't work, they came here for another shot. My wife let them in and handed them my phone, so I couldn't record anything. It's in his shirt pocket," I added, nodding at Crusher. "That phone should have plenty of evidence of their intentions." Crusher quickly countered, "Ridiculous. We drove Emma here after her husband left her in Clarkstown following his arm wrestling win. She invited us to celebrate. He's just making this all up because he's paranoid." I suggested taking us all to the station to give statements and make a public record, but Bob cut me off. "I know what to do." Within minutes, everyone but Jake was in handcuffs and being loaded into police cars. Jake told Bob he'd secure the house and then come to the station. I knew he'd upload copies of the recordings as we had planned. At the station, I recounted everything that happened and laid out what I suspected their plan was. I advised Bob to check the case left at my house for ketamine and the camera with the video footage. Bob offered me a cup of coffee and then began taking the other statements. Later, Bob returned, his expression serious. "Army, these guys are all telling the same story, that you're nuts. They claim you won the arm wrestling competition, then held them at gunpoint after Emma invited them over. One of them is a lawyer and wants to represent the others, but since he's also a suspect, that's not happening. They're all writing statements. Do you have any proof? I can't open the files on that camera without a warrant, but I did impound it," he added. I told Bob that Jake had an audio recording of their confessions and was making copies as we spoke. This immediately changed the tone of the investigation. As soon as Emma heard about the recording, she broke down and changed her story, claiming she had been seduced and blackmailed into cheating by the men. An officer accompanied Jake and me back to my house with my permission, so no warrant was needed. They secured a small case one of the men had left by the door. Inside, along with the camera Emma had retrieved earlier, were 2 bottles of liquor, ketamine, large tubes of lubricant, and some flexible hoses. The video downloaded from the camera clearly showed my soon-to-be ex-wife happily engaging with all 5 men, and Crusher bragging about how much she loved the thrill, even saying she couldn't wait to be with him after he won the contest. Bob might have stretched the rules a bit, but he let me watch the video at the station. By then, I had my own copy to watch later. With enough evidence to convict, Emma, Crusher, and the 5 other men were held in jail until their arraignment on Monday. I kept the original SD card hidden, but Bob advised Jake and me to stay close. However, I decided to leave town early Sunday morning, needing to put as much distance as I could between me and this nightmare. I booked 2 last-minute round-trip tickets to Las Vegas for Jake and me, not caring much about the return leg. Once we landed, we spent the day wandering the casinos, collecting discarded betting slips like scavengers. By the end of the day, we cobbled together nearly $40,000 worth of winnings. Our plan was simple: claim I'd blown most of the money in Vegas, making it look like I'd spent my ill-gotten gains on one reckless weekend. Jake and I made sure to cover our tracks. We took plenty of photos at strip clubs and with overpriced bottles of liquor, carefully crafting a story of excess. We even swung by a children's hospital, making a donation and posing in the sweatshirts they gave us as thanks. By Monday, my phone was practically vibrating off the table with calls, most likely from Emma's parents, but I wasn't interested in talking. It wasn't until Bob texted me, ordering me to call him back, that I picked up the phone. When I finally did, he wasn't exactly thrilled with our little vacation. He told us to get back home immediately, and when we did, he met us with an official reprimand, escorting us straight to the district attorney's office. Jake and I claimed we didn't realize we had to stay local, and thought close meant anywhere within the continental U.S. Bob, and the DA didn't buy it, but we stuck to our story. The DA asked me to recount the events again, and I made sure my story matched the audio recording perfectly. By then, I was dead set on divorcing Emma. I consulted with a lawyer, Mr. Price, who estimated the divorce would run about $2,000. Not a small sum, but a necessary expense. He assured me the criminal charges against Emma and her so-called friends were the real priority, and that I didn't need to worry about hiding the money, since there wasn't much left anyway. On Tuesday, I found a new apartment near work. My parents would have welcomed me back home, but I preferred to stay independent and as far from Emma as possible. By that time, rumors were flying around our small town. The story circulating was that Emma had an affair with her boss, who then showed up at my house to confront me. Supposedly, I'd held him at gunpoint until the police arrived. After Emma refused to move back in with her parents, I moved out, following my lawyer's advice to keep the real story under wraps and hold onto the audio recordings as leverage. By Wednesday, the calls from unknown numbers were increasing. The 4th one came from Gloria Jenkins, Crusher's wife. She sent a text asking me to call her, and out of curiosity, I did. She answered right away and told me her husband claimed it was all a big misunderstanding. She wanted to meet in person, so I drove to Kensington, bringing Jake's recording pin just in case things got complicated. At the cafe, Gloria introduced herself. She was striking, blonde, late 20s, and although she put on a calm front, I could see the worry in her eyes. I wasn't sure if she was a victim in all this or if she was just as guilty, so I kept my guard up. She explained that her husband and his friends had been arrested after something happened at my house, and she suspected she wasn't getting the full story. She asked me to explain what had really gone down. Sensing that she and the other wives had been kept in the dark, I suggested inviting them over. I pointed out the 3 women sitting across the cafe who had been watching us since I walked in. Gloria seemed impressed by my awareness and waved them over. After introductions, one of the women, her voice trembling, asked, "Is it as bad as we think?" "Depends on what you think," I replied. "For me, it's the end of my marriage. Crusher's been trying to get close to Emma for a while now. He managed to get everything except actually sleeping with her, and he and his buddies planned to use that to blackmail her into doing whatever they wanted in the future." Their faces cycled through disbelief, anger, and shock. No wonder the police held them so long, Gloria muttered. They just got out this morning and have been with their lawyer ever since. I assume you've got proof, despite what they're claiming. I pulled out a flash drive. I've got hours of audio recordings. It's pretty damning. There's a lot of nonsense in the middle, but I can give you the highlights, and then you can listen for yourselves. One of the women shook her head in disgust. I can't believe how stupid your wife is. Doing something like that isn't just a mistake. It's cheating. And to make a video, knowing it could get out? Another woman chimed in. She really thought it was okay to cheat as long as you didn't remember because of the drugs? I nodded, noticing that they weren't surprised by their husband's behavior. Why would I be? One of the women said, almost resigned. My husband's always been an arrogant jerk. My mom warned me he'd cheat someday. When we heard about an angry husband with a gun, we figured it was something like this, but this is worse than we imagined. Gloria suggested, let's go to my office. We can listen to the recording there. She explained that she worked in investments and had an office nearby. They listened to the recording, skipping past the arm wrestling parts. By the end, they were almost as furious as I was. One of them even joked, teach me how to rip it off if he ever pulls something like this again. The others laughed, and they all made quick phone calls, each lasting less than a minute. Gloria explained that the 6 men had been inseparable since high school, bonding over bodybuilding and chasing girls. They were disciplined, charming, and more loyal to each other than to their wives. We women get along because of them, but our marriages? They're not much to speak of. We're like planets orbiting around their little universe. After the others had left, Gloria turned to me and asked, Army, you're clearly smart. Why are you working a job that doesn't pay well? I shrugged and explained. After I left the military, I wanted to stay close to my folks. Do they need you to take care of them? She asked, genuinely curious. I shook my head. No, they're doing fine on their own. They actually encouraged me to move on, but I guess I just didn't listen. I didn't need to stay so close, I admitted, but I got comfortable. This place felt like home, and I just settled in. Jake's in a similar spot. His brother's a senior police officer, but Jake sticks to a low-key job to keep things easy. Gloria laughed, and I found myself liking the sound of it more than I expected. That realization made me uncomfortable, so I quickly excused myself, feeling a twinge of guilt. You can call me anytime, I told her, though I wasn't sure if I should have said that. Part of me was already looking forward to hearing from her again, even though I knew it was risky. After dodging several calls, texts, and voicemails, Emma eventually managed to corner me, begging for a chance to explain. All right, Emma, I said when we met. What makes you think there's a misunderstanding? Why do you believe there's any chance of fixing our marriage? She looked startled, not expecting me to be so direct. You made it clear that you didn't think what you did was wrong, I continued. Flirting, kissing, letting another man touch you. That wasn't cheating in your book. Even sleeping with those guys didn't seem like cheating to you, as long as I didn't find out. Emma stammered. I didn't mean to hurt you. I just got caught up in the excitement with Crusher. So, what happens the next time someone like him comes along? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You just get caught up in it again? And you thought it was fine to humiliate me, wipe my memory, and then act like nothing happened? To my surprise, I wasn't angry, just resigned. Emma rambled through her excuses, finally admitting, I was wrong, but I want you, Army. I want to have your kids. It was just fun, and I didn't think you'd ever find out. But you would know, I said calmly. You'd remember what you did and think you got away with it. She suggested counseling, but I wasn't convinced. Do you want to listen to a recording of what you said Saturday night? I asked. If you still think it was okay, then we can talk. I didn't intend to reconcile, but I wanted her to face the reality of what she'd done. The following Saturday, Gloria invited me to a dinner party with some of the other wives and girlfriends. I wanted to see Gloria, but I still didn't fully trust the situation, so I brought a small pistol just in case. I'm glad you came, Army, Gloria said warmly when I arrived. I was hoping you'd trust me, but I get it. It's smart to be cautious. As the evening went on, the women discussed their husbands' feeble excuses, none of them showing much regret over the impending divorces. They're more concerned about losing their money, one said. We're going after half of everything, and we're not paying a dime for their legal defense. My husband tried to play down the charges, another woman added. But when I mentioned the recordings, he panicked. He didn't realize you had recorded everything. I nodded. Making sure they couldn't escape the truth was my main goal. Gloria giggled. Crusher's reaction was priceless. How did a Marine outsmart us? Another woman laughed. That recording saved me from marrying Andy. I need to dig deeper next time. They all raised their glasses, cheering to their newfound freedom. Throughout the evening, I noticed Gloria watching me closely. At one point, a woman asked if I had spoken to Emma. I admitted that I had, mostly out of curiosity about her excuses. They guessed that I'd recorded the conversation and laughed, saying they'd done the same with their husbands. Your wife is completely delusional, one of them commented after hearing the story. She doesn't even think what she did was that bad. She's just pissed that you found out. Gloria added thoughtfully. She admits she was wrong, but still wants to move forward with you. If that's her version of love, I'd hate to see what her version of hate looks like. Another woman chimed in. She loves you, but she doesn't get that love alone doesn't fix a marriage. There's a lot more to it. Gloria looked at me, her words hanging in the air, almost as if she was asking me to think about what that meant. Midweek, I decided to call Gloria, curious about how she was doing. I was surprised by how genuinely happy she sounded to hear from me, and we made plans to meet up that weekend. I'm really glad you called, Army, she said when we met. I wanted to call you first, but I wasn't sure if you want to hear from me. She smiled playfully and added, I hope you trust me a bit more this time. Maybe I should frisk you. Make sure you're not hiding anything dangerous. I laughed, caught off guard. We're not kids, she continued, her tone softening. I think we both feel a connection, but of course, we met under the worst possible circumstances. You're probably wondering how someone like me could have fallen for a guy like Crusher. I started to protest, but she waved it off. I was in love with the idea of love. Crusher was smart, good-looking, and had that kind of build that turned heads. It made me feel special to be with him. My mom warned me he'd break my heart, but I didn't listen. By the time I realized she was right, it was too late. I was already married. But I'm not the type to give up easily, she added with a small smile. Though, this is one time I should have walked away. I can see why your wife fell for his charm, Gloria continued. He could sell anything to anyone. He was a natural coach, always pushing people to do better. I never saw him try to seduce anyone else, and I'm not even sure if he ever cheated on me, though he denies it. My mom wasn't shocked by what happened. She always said it was just a matter of time before Crusher messed up. At least we didn't have kids. Gloria looked down, her cheeks slightly pink. I'm not sure what he saw in me either, she confessed. To me, it was obvious. She was intelligent, kind, and undeniably beautiful. I'm pushy, maybe too ambitious, she continued. I was raised to always strive for the best and to expect the same from others. My parents didn't make much money, but they loved their work and raised two strong daughters. They encouraged us to try everything, sports, music, art, so we could find our passions. When I told them about Crusher, Dad stayed quiet, but Mom spoke up for both of them. She even had a few things to say about you. About me? I was surprised. I've never met her. True, but you're part of the story, Gloria said, smiling. Curious, I asked. What did she say? Gloria leaned in slightly, her eyes sparkling with intrigue. Most of it's between us, she replied with a teasing grin. But let's just say she has a good read on you and your situation. I did, and I think she agrees with me. Emma loves you, but she doesn't respect you, Gloria said, her voice firm but gentle. I nodded slowly, the truth of her words settling in. I've questioned if she ever really loved me. Oh, she does love you, Gloria assured me. She wants your kids. If she was only interested in cheating, she wouldn't have gone to such lengths to keep you in the dark. But deep down, she thinks you're not good enough for her. She craves the upper hand, which is why she talked about humiliating you after being with Crusher. That's not just disrespectful, it's cruel. And it makes me furious. I let out a bitter laugh. It didn't exactly sit well with me either. Gloria's eyes suddenly filled with tears, and she leaned forward, her voice trembling with emotion. No, you don't understand. It enrages me. The thought of what she planned to do to you makes me want to tear her apart. She might not respect you, but I do. She took a deep breath and continued. From the moment we met, I respected you. You had the courage to face Crusher's wife, and you treated me with decency and kindness. I admired that. I admired you. Let me finish, Gloria said, holding up her hand as I tried to speak. You remind me of my dad. People say girls often marry men like their fathers. I didn't with Crusher, but I see a lot of my dad in you. My mom even warned me not to fall for you too quickly, but I'm struggling here. I need to know, do you like me? I hesitated, then admitted. I felt guilty about my feelings for you. Part of me wanted to be with you just to spite Crusher, but then I realized it's not about him. It's about you. And that scares me. I'm still technically married, even if it's to someone who doesn't deserve me. But yes, Gloria, I do like you. She smiled, a mixture of relief and warmth in her eyes. Good? Then let's take our time and see where this goes. We both laughed softly, the tension easing. Then she leaned in closer and asked, Can we at least share a kiss? I nodded, and she slid into my lap, kissing me deeply. When we finally pulled apart, she grinned playfully. I'm staking my claim on you, and when the gold runs out, you'll move on? I teased, raising an eyebrow. She shook her head, giggling. Nope, I'll reinvest everything. I want a relationship built on something real, on love, not just lust. Respect is key. We'll find our common ground because I'm a determined woman who knows what she wants, just like my mom. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about what Gloria had said. I knew I was rebounding from Emma, but this felt different. Gloria was right. Emma might have loved me, but she never really respected me. That realization hurt more than I expected. Gloria, on the other hand, had openly respected me from the start, even comparing me to her father, whom I hadn't met yet. Her feelings for me were clear, and while I was deeply attracted to her, the intensity of it all scared me and made me feel guilty. Meanwhile, Mr. Price filed the divorce papers, officially separating my finances from Emma's. With no job and our savings dwindling, Emma eventually had to call her parents for help, which meant coming clean about our separation, though she conveniently left out the worst parts. Her father called me, upset, urging me to consider counseling, claiming that Emma had just flirted and went too far. I sent him a flash drive with the audio recording of that night. 3 days later, he called back apologizing. He understood now, but he still felt compelled to help his daughter avoid jail time. By the end of the second week, word had spread that I had the full audio recordings. The 2 veterinarians involved were sanctioned, losing their ability to handle anesthetics, which made their work nearly impossible. At the gym, every female member was informed about Crusher's actions, leading to Stokes Fitness firing him to prevent a mass exodus. My attorney had briefly considered suing the gym, but we decided to focus on the criminal case instead. The criminal trial moved faster than I expected, taking only 6 months. The local media followed the case closely due to the prominence of the men involved. The defense lawyers did everything they could to suppress the audio recordings, which were the prosecution's key evidence, and the men even attempted to press charges against me for holding them at gunpoint. Those charges were quickly dismissed. Emma, feeling betrayed by her co-conspirators, turned on them and testified for the prosecution, detailing how they had planned to drug and humiliate me. Her confession earned her a 2-year sentence, with 18 months suspended. Initially, I would have been satisfied just to see their relationships fall apart, but seeing justice served brought a sense of closure. During this time, I grew even closer to Gloria. She pushed me to enroll in college, and Jake joined me. We both did well, completing our first semester with strong grades by the time the trial ended. Gloria also introduced Jake to Marie, one of the ex-wives of the men involved. Both women were impressive, and Jake joked about how they shared the same fate. Gloria and I waited until our divorces were finalized before taking our relationship to the next level, and it was worth the wait. On our honeymoon, Gloria surprised me by revealing that she had stopped her birth control months earlier because she wanted to start a family with me. She also showed me a temporary tattoo on her back that read "Exclusive Property of Carter Dawson," which made me laugh out loud. We both felt incredibly fortunate to have found each other. One afternoon, while grabbing a quick snack, we unexpectedly ran into Emma, who was back at her old job after serving her time. She tried to make small talk, but I quickly informed her that Gloria was now my wife and that we were expecting a child. Another server took over for Emma, who walked away, clearly upset. In the following months, Gloria and I settled into a new rhythm. My divorce from Emma, though painful, felt necessary for my happiness. Gloria and I focused on building our future together, excited about the arrival of our baby. The conclusion of the criminal trial provided me with a much-needed sense of closure. When our son was born, our lives were filled with joy, and Gloria and I grew even closer, thankful for the second chance we had been given. Looking back, I realized that every challenge and hardship had led me to where I was truly meant to be, by Gloria's side, with our son in my arms, finally feeling at home.